Okay.
Oh, that's not where we are.
Hello. Folks, please, quiet. Thank you. I'm calling this meeting to order. Calling to order the meeting of the Albany City Council for November 4th, 2019. And Vice Mayor McQuaid will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance with the style, the traditional style without the phrase "under God."
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barnes?
Here.
Councilmember Moss?
Present.
Councilmember Pilch?
Here.
Vice Mayor McQuaid?
Here.
Mayor Nason?
Here. And we turn to ceremonial matters. Before we begin, I want to mention that we will adjourn tonight with a moment of silence for the 5 young people who were lost in the terrible incident in Orinda. And I wanted to say that we as a council have a strategic objective of improving our own safety in this town through our strategic plan. We have an element of examining social host laws, and we will examine what can be done in Albany to increase safety from any kind of situation that can cause such things to happen. We'll go to the first ceremonial matter is the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, graduation. And I think that this item, is this one Vice Mayor McQuaid? I do apologize. I have been vacationing until just a few hours ago, so I may have not done all that I need to. How do we do? Is this something
we have our staff
that?
here? Yes.
Okay, very good. Gentlemen, please come up.
Fire department to
All
the
right.
rescue.
Always, yes.
Thank you very much. Welcome back from vacation. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So I wrote down a couple words because I always get super excited and I forget to say everything that was on my head. First of all, thank you. Good evening to the Albany City Council, Mayor, City Manager, and staff, Fire Chief, and all in attendance. Thank you for being here and carving out time for us tonight to recognize the latest City of Albany CERT class. The class of fall 2019 graduates 15 individuals who dedicated 24 plus hours of their time over the last few months to help make their families and the Albany community safer. This class joins the 150 plus other CERT graduates in Albany. As we have all seen recently with the terrible fire disasters in California in particular, the idea of disaster preparedness is not a theoretical exercise, rather a practical one that has real life-saving implications. While the City of Albany employs top-notch public safety personnel in the fire and police departments and dedicated disaster service workers from all of the city departments, including community development, public works, recreation, finance, and administration, when a true disaster strikes, the role of community emergency response teams cannot be undervalued. The group recognized today trained in disaster preparedness, fire extinguishment, utility control, patient triage and treatment, search and rescue, disaster psychology, and communication and documentation. To a person, they demonstrated tenacity and determination to bring order to chaos and suffering to healing. We thank each and every one of them and their families for letting us borrow them for their commitment to our fine city. We offer a special thanks to the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, FEMA, California Listos, the Albany firefighters, Neighborhood Services Manager Sid Schoenfeld, Class Assistant Bill Springer, volunteers from the Albany CERT, and the moulage artists from around the area to help make this training practical and effective. And also just another special shout out to the city staff who recently completed 2 days of training for an emergency operations center activation, and also our Albany Hill evacuation that we just successfully did the other day. So thank you very much, city staff, for having that happen. Now, if we can recognize the Albany CERT class of fall 2019. So not all of them can make it tonight, so if you're watching there at home, we miss you, but you're here in spirit, and we thank you for all your support and work in the class. So let's start us off with Olivia. Next we have Lincoln. Anne. David, and maybe baby, David. Here we go. And this is our Fire Chief, Lance Calkins, who's handing out a CERT pin. So thank you, Chief, for being up here. Next up, city employee Nancy. This is great. A bunch of City of Albany employees have taken the CERT class too, so it's very special and it just makes our community safer. Next up, we have Patty. Aaron. Karen. So that's all the people that we have from the class tonight. One special thank you to Bill Springer, who has helped assist our class for the past several classes. We couldn't do it without him. Thank you, Bill. If you could oblige us for...
I didn't even try.
If we could take one quick picture with the permission.
Let's have a picture.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
I'd like to do something. I'd like to have a standing ovation from the council for the CERT graduates, because this is an amazing thing that we do. So come on up and let's do a picture. Peter's taking. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council, again, for taking the time. Really appreciate it. And if you're looking to take the CERT class, look on our city website, and we would love to teach you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. No, I'm sorry. We can't have people come jumping to the microphone. I'm sorry. What?
Filled out a speaker card for the item.
A speaker card on this item. Okay, then come on up. All right, why not? All right, we'll do it.
Pardon me. I'm Brian Beal. I'm a former CERT graduate. In this particular class, I volunteered as a victim for them to experiment and to test them. And I just wanted to say that it's very, as you said, it's very important for the community, but it's also a lot of fun. So it's not all. And I had an opportunity to use the skills I learned recently. There was a car accident in front of my house, and so I went in and didn't have to, but I was prepared to go and get the guy out of the vehicle. There was a car flipped over. So if nothing else, this will help you prepare, and I would encourage people to sign up for next year.
Thank you. Okay. We go on to our next ceremonial matter, proclamation in recognition of Shelley Putzer's service to the City of Albany. Is this yours? Please come on up, Shelley, and would you be so kind? Thank you.
This is kind of a bittersweet moment. City of Albany Proclamation. In recognition of Albany Recreation and Community Services Director Shelley Putzer's service to the City of Albany. Whereas Michelle Putzer, AKA Shelley Putzer, commenced service with the City of Albany as an Albany Recreation Supervisor on September 12, 2003. And whereas Shelley Putzer was promoted to the position of Administrative Management Analyst on November 12, 2007, and whereas Shelley Putzer was promoted to the position of Albany Community Services Manager on June 29, 2009, and whereas Shelley Putzer was appointed to the position of Albany Recreation and Community Services Director on June 16, 2014, and whereas Shelley Putzer, during the 16 years of service to the City of Albany, worked with staff in the Recreation and Community Services Department to facilitate many community engagement programs and events, including Dinner with Albany, Music in the Park, Civics Academy, Alberto Streets, At the Center, Albany Local Week, Block Movie Nights, Songs on Solano, New Year's Eve, Commitment to Serve Expo, Fireside Songs and S'mores, Bike About Town, a very Albany 4th of July, green, red, white, and blue celebration, the various swapping events, and many other programs enjoyed by the community. And whereas during Shelley Putzer's service in the city's Recreation and Community Services Department, several California Park and Recreation Society awards were received for 2017 District 3 Award for Outstanding Recreation Program, Friends of the Albany Parks, 2018 Award of Excellence for Park Planning, Ohlone Greenway Improvement Project, 2018 Award of Excellence for Community Building, Dinner with Albany, 2018 District 3 Award for Outstanding Park or Facility, Albany Bus Stop Parklet, Albany's first parklet and the first bus stop parklet in the United States. And whereas Shelley Putzer developed the city's policy for the Fair Play Act, eligibility for field use, participation assessment and field allocation to comply with Fair Play and Community Sports Act, AB 2404, in mandating gender equity in youth sports programs that use city parks and recreational facilities. And whereas Shelley Putzer has served as the staff liaison for the Arts Committee and the Park, Recreation, Open Space Commission, previously known as the Parks and Recreation Commission. And whereas Shelley Putzer, after 16 years of service, has taken a position with the City of Piedmont and will separate from the City of Albany as of November 5th, 2019. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council wishes to express its appreciation for Shelley Putzer's service to the City of Albany. Rochelle Nason, Mayor. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the proclamation. It means a lot to me, and I want to thank the community of Albany. I have been here for a long time, and one of the few T-shirts that I've made over the years was an I'd Heart Albany shirt, and I will definitely wear that frequently after I leave. And I want to make sure I thank my recreation staff. They're just amazing people and work really hard every day, so thank you to them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So we go on to the report on action taken in closed session, if any. No action was taken, but direction was given to staff. Consent calendar. Consent items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or a member of the audience requests removal of the items from the consent calendar. Does anyone on the council have any items they would like removed from the consent calendar? Okay. Does anyone in the public wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move consent.
Second.
May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McQuay?
Yes.
Mayor Nason?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And we go on to good of the city and public comment. This section is for persons desiring to address the City Council on an item that is not on the agenda. Please note that city policy limits each speaker up to 3 minutes. The Brown Act limits the council's ability to take or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to staff for comment or to a future agenda. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, we do. Aaron Friedman, Andrew Tang, and Buddy Akasi.
All right, let's begin with Mr. Friedman.
Is that his name?
Tiedemann.
Tiedemann, that's what I
Thank you. My name is Aaron Tiedemann. I am an Albany resident of 23 years. I sit on the Albany Economic Development Commission, though I'm here tonight as a representative and private citizen with Albany Voter Choice. Now, my group would like to encourage council to consider electoral reform, specifically electoral reform in the area of moving Albany towards ranked choice voting in our city council elections. As you all know, we currently use plurality at large elections, which if I had time, I could go into the technicalities and how that system is flawed, but suffice to say that it limits the actual representation of people's views. It leads to less contested elections, and currently it means that we are out of compliance with the California Voting Rights Act because it disproportionately negates the voting power of minorities. Now, my group would like to move us towards ranked choice voting. The other option that is often employed by cities is dividing the city up into districts and having district elections. However, there's been ample evidence that these actually lead to less contested elections, that they don't solve the issue that's at hand, whereas ranked choice voting is really a chance to get better representation, discourage tactical voting, and ensure that everyone's identity, everyone's political opinions are more accurately represented. And I think now is really the time to do this, as all across the nation and towns just like this, people are realizing that our core democratic institutions aren't up to the task that they've been set or that they need reform, that first past the post plurality at large is no longer doing the job and representing people as it needs to, and that with reforms like these, with ranked choice voting, we can ensure that more people are involved, that more people's opinions are represented, and that our civic and democratic institutions are really performing their job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Albany City Council. My name is Andrew Tang. I'm here also representing the group that Aaron Tiedemann represents, Voter Choice Albany. I might mention for those who are interested in learning more about our group, you can write to voterchoicealbany at googlegroups.com. That's voterchoicealbany with one word at googlegroups.com. So during closed session, you just recently discussed the potential of litigation because Albany may be out of compliance with the California Civil Voting Rights Act. I would like to know what direction you've given staff, but obviously I don't know. But I would encourage you to, as Mr. Tiedemann so eloquently said, not to divide the city up into districts. District elections have the potential to reduce the number of, to increase the number of uncontested elections in the city. An analysis done by one of the members of our group, Preston Jordan, indicates that the number of uncontested city council elections probably would increase from 1 in 6 to 1 in 3. Our group finds that completely unsatisfactory and undemocratic and urges you not to do that. As Mr. Tiedemann has mentioned, ranked choice voting is a very nice option that could address this issue. I might speak on that for just a little longer. It does reduce the chance of a successful civil California Voting Rights Act lawsuit against the city, because in order to show that there is a violation, there's a statistical analysis that's done on the voting record of past elections. But if this council were to change the voting method, of course, the statistical analysis would no longer hold. Furthermore, the ranked choice voting wouldn't, the voting pattern that emerges would tend not to violate the California Voting Rights Act. So once a new record of data is established, you wouldn't be vulnerable anymore. So, I think that concludes my remarks, but just for those in the audience and those who might be listening online, and if you're interested in learning more about our group, the email again was voterchoicealbany@googlegroups.com, and members of our group would be happy to come to talk to any member of the council or any member of the public that's interested in learning more about these issues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have another speaker card?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Buddy Akasich. I'm a El Cerrito resident, and I come here tonight. I've been to one other Albany City Council meeting. This is my second one. And I plan to come to every one that I can. I won't be here in December. I'll be in India, but trust me, I'll be here every city council meeting I can conceivably be. And I want to tell you about what the differences are between here and El Cerrito and also Richmond. They're stark. El Cerrito and Albany are similar in a lot of ways. City of Albany, urban village by the bay. What is Emeryville? What is Emeryville? What do they call themselves, you know? But, so I'm just trying to introduce myself. I'd like to be your friend. I'd like to support you. I'd like to make you aware of important events and important lines of thinking and researching. We had a meeting at the seminar that I lead on September 11th with the two mayors of Albany and El Cerrito, and they presented a case for no hospitals in either city, and we may lose Alta Bates. And so I'm thinking, okay, what will we do right now tonight? You know, we have an emergency. Where are we going to go? So in that regards, on Saturday, this coming Saturday, November the 9th at 11 o'clock in the morning, the city of Richmond is initiating a dialogue having to do with the possibility of innovating an urgent care facility in Richmond. That's important. And so I would, Saturday, November 9th, Craneway Pavilion, you go down Cutting, you turn left on Harbor, you go all the way, where they have the Rosie the Riveter things, that's where it's going on. And then in addition to that, in November, there's going to be a meeting at the El Cerrito Community Center. Rochelle, are you part of that?
We don't do dialogue.
Oh, that's right.
But
that's right. Yeah, I
we're
should.
going, during these subcommittee reports, Vice Mayor McQuaid we'll talk about that
Okay,
event.
yeah,
Thank you.
I should know by now. So I thank you very much for bearing with me, and I want to be your friend, and I want to be your ally, and help me help you, and let's move into the future in a positive way that's of benefit to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? All right, then we will move forward to council subcommittee reports, council member reports on appointed representation of Albany and other meetings and events. And we begin with city council subcommittees. I think we have a report from Youth Engagement Subcommittee.
I'm actually doing it. The Youth Engagement Subcommittee consists of Councilmember Moss and myself, and we have met several times. On September 30th, we met with staff to consider what programs the city already offers to youth. Prior to that meeting, staff held an informal meeting with the youth that are already on staff to determine what is currently being done and what might be done as in a future expansion. While there are many options to consider, we decided to focus on partnering with the Albany Y to include a local government module in their youth and government program. On October 25th, we met with Mary D'Elia, the executive director of the Albany Y, and Sebastian De La Rosa, who's the youth and government program manager, to discuss this partnership. We've agreed to host an event in March for participants in the youth and government program to spend an afternoon at City Hall. They will meet with department heads and learn about the workings of municipal government, enjoy dinner with the council members to discuss our perspective of being elected officials, and answer questions about the city. Finally, at the council meeting, a proclamation to the youth and government program will be awarded. The subcommittee will continue to work with Sebastian on planning for this event. One of the goals is to showcase opportunities for young people in local government and to encourage them to apply for membership in the city's advisory bodies. This event is aligned with City Council strategic plan, facilitate government accountability, and to engage our diverse community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor McQuaid, perhaps if you, I believe we did report on the, we did a report on the last, the last meeting. There we go. Thank you so much. So for the Alta Subcommittee, if you would speak on this.
Yes, as the gentleman mentioned, there is a forum in Contra Costa County in El Cerrito on November 16th from 10 to 12 to learn more about the potential closure of Alta Bates. We do have flyers in the back if anybody wants to pick one up. I think that for now that's it.
Yep, encouraging people to come. Are there any other subcommittee reports? How about council member reports on appointed representation of Albany 7-2? And this is the, there is a list of these bodies. Does anyone have reports to make on these meetings?
Sure, just a very brief one. I met with the other members of the subcommittee of EBCE, and the subcommittee's name I'm going to forget, but it is concerned with legislation and marketing. And we are just forming as a subcommittee, and so we discussed our goals and the desire to look more closely at upcoming state legislation, and that's about it.
Thank you. Any other reports in this category? Any other meetings or events that people would like to share with the rest of the council and the public? No? Michael?
Not unless you want to hear about bike riding in
No,
Taiwan.
we don't.
Vice
We'd like
Mayor.
it. We'd like it, but
We don't even.
Councilmember Moss? Nope. Anybody else?
Oh, I don't know where it actually, maybe it fell into another category, but I was representing the city accepting the Welcome to Albany sign donated by the Albany Community Foundation at the border of El Cerrito on Key Route Boulevard. That was very nice. And I also got to help out on the Y program. Is it called Youth in Government program, or no? It is the Youth in Government program, which was very impressive actually, where they teach the kids about state legislation and how that's made and how to make state legislation and how to debate about it and make it better, and great stuff that they're doing. So it's fortunate to have to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think yes, please.
I attended the Everyone Home Leadership Board and a CalPERS training for elected officials. We had pension board meeting. As Councilmember Putz said, I was at the sign dedication on Halloween. I was able to go out with Albany Police Department for Operation Glow Stick, where they give out glow sticks to the trick-or-treaters. I think they gave out over 600 glow sticks this year. I was the building attendant for Youth in Government on Saturday. Today I spent most of the day in Sacramento at a homeless policy workshop put on by the League of California Cities and the similar organization for the counties. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly what the name is. Yesterday I was privileged to be able to participate in the Albany Hill evacuation drill, and I really do want to take a little time to talk about this. I want to congratulate Lieutenant Tim Smizer on a job extremely well done. It was really wonderful to see first responders, not only Albany Police and Fire Department, but also El Cerrito, Berkeley, and Piedmont, all working together to ensure the safety of our community. I also want to thank all of the CERT volunteers who came out to help under the leadership of firefighter Mike Robb and Neighborhood Services Manager Sid Schoenfeld. And I know this exercise proved to be a wonderful learning experience for everyone, including those in the designated areas that actually did evacuate. It made us more prepared for any incident that will come to Albany. So thank you all that participated and everyone who was there to help us.
Thank you. Okay, I think that we are ready to move to the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Following up on Vice Mayor McQuaid's comments regarding the evacuation drill this weekend, I'd like to thank all staff involved with that. It's a unique group of cross-departmental team, and it's really something that shows how well we can work together, and that's something that we will definitely build on. I have some pictures here because, I don't have pictures of the drill here. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but we will make sure that those get in many of our e-notify items as well. But again, thank you to all involved with that. The police department is actually what I pulled up here. As, again, Vice Mayor McQuaid mentioned, the handout of glow sticks during the trick-or-treating events. It seemed like there are a lot of trick-or-treaters out this Halloween. So this is our Sergeant Kurland out and about and just making that friendly presence, which is extremely well received. Another item that the police department has been involved with recently is their outreach to the freshman high school class at Albany High School, the Freshman Identity Health Society course. Officers go and get to know students in the freshman class and help them familiarize themselves with the police department, how to engage with the police department, and how to be safe. And it's always very well received, a great enrichment program. Public Works and Public Safety have been extremely busy with the will we have power? Will we not have power? Managing the public safety power shutoff events. Luckily, they didn't come to Albany. Again, this was a helpful learning drill for us, but we did a lot of preparation work just in case, particularly the Public Works Department, who, if you might have seen the signs around town, the stop signs at every intersection, as the signals will go out if we lose power, and just other preparations they've done to ensure maximum safety in the event of a power outage, either by weather or planned power outage. We've also had our graffiti contractor very busy along the Albany Greenway and Solano Avenue. But it's fantastic that we have this contract in place so that we can manage it as best as possible. You can also report any new graffiti using the service request feature on our website. Because of the dry, windy weather, the sand at the Ocean View Park won't be out until later in November, in case you are looking for sandbag opportunities. And Albany Hill, as the council has reviewed this project a few times, is very much underway. And here are some recent photos of the fantastic improvements at that location. If you haven't been up there, you'll see the utility of this path is just so significant compared to what it was before. And we really look forward to seeing the completion of this project and the improvements to the hill. There's one more. Nice walking path. And I think one other thing, I do have some numbers in terms of the evacuation drill. We had 55 vehicles and over 150 evacuees. Now that was daylight savings, so you had to remember the hour and also be ready to get out and roll early on in the morning. So appreciate all the residents for participating in that. One other thing that we've added to our website is a list of future tentative.
It's on the Google Chrome.
Oh. Maybe you can pull it up, Ann? A list of future tentative dates for major agenda items of the City Council or major topic areas. And please note that the underscore here is that it's a tentative projected timeline, so the dates or months would be certainly subject to change. So it is a living document, but hopefully it helps give some advanced notice in terms of when some major items will be coming our way. And it's on our website. We'll pull it up in a minute. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Let's get the presentation of the CAFR on there, shall we? And let's we move on to presentations and 9-1 quarterly financial update. Thank you.
It's okay. All right. So, first quarter of the fiscal year 2019-20. And so we are, on the first quarter, 25% of the way through the year. And we are currently at, overall, we've spent 27.66% of our budget, which seems like, oh, we're overspending, but not really. A lot of things come out in the first quarter that we're never going to spend again. For example, in this chart right here, the green is what we've spent so far, and the blue is what we've budgeted. You see there's two that are over 25%. And it's our, yeah, you can go ahead. Two are over 25%. One is risk management, and that's all our insurance payments. And then the one on the right is non-departmental, and that is mostly due to our unfunded pension payments that we have to make every year. But everything else, all the departmental ones are under that 25%. If we look at the quarter-to-date history, we're up slightly, but not as much as we were up last year, so that's good. And that's in expenses. And then on the right is revenue, and it looks like it's down a little bit, but as you'll see on the next slide, property tax is our main source of revenue. We budgeted this year for 31% of our total revenue is property tax. And the first quarter, we only get kind of like catch up. Like if people didn't pay on time or if they're paying back years, so that changes year to year. We're going to get the majority of the revenue in the second quarter. And you can see quarter over quarter, we get most of the revenue in the second and fourth quarters. But so far the city has brought in 13.21% of budgeted revenue, which is actually up from where we were total last year as a percent of budget. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was the hotel occupancy tax. We sent out letters to people who do short-term rentals indicating that they should be registering to collect and remit hotel occupancy taxes. This is not really a new tax. The city has had this tax on the books since 1958, but taxes always lag behind technology. So we are now catching up to the Airbnbs and things like that. So we're giving people a grace period. We aren't going to charge interest or penalties, but we just want to make sure that people come into compliance with this. So if someone has a short-term rental, hopefully they got a letter. If they didn't and they would like to come forward, that would be great. The tax is 10% of the amount that you charge the renter. It is technically a tax on the renter, not on the operator, but the operator is charged with collecting the tax from the renter. And those taxes are due quarterly. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have questions, please?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So non-departmental is basically citywide expenses, and the majority of that is our payment of the actuarial unfunded liability payment that we are required to pay to CalPERS every year.
Does it look like it's every quarter?
No, it's going to look like that. We make that payment in July, and we only make it once.
And the idea is that in theory we get caught on something in the future. We make these payments.
Yes. So when the actuaries calculate the unfunded actuarial liability, they are currently using a 30-year assumption. So they're assuming that if you make a set payment over so many years, you're going to catch up and it'll cover that. You'll be 100% funded in 30 years. Next year, they're moving to using 20 years. So obviously the payment's going to increase.
Could I ask a follow-up question? It looks like we budgeted $931,222. I'm looking at 80 non-departmental, but
Yes.
we paid 1.8 million in the first quarter and change, and then
Yes.
there's also something there with benefit. Oh, that this is a roll-up. Okay, I see that. But this this is a little hard to understand, what we're looking at in the materials we received. Why did our budget end up being less than half, or only about half of our payment?
So historically, the city hasn't actually budgeted for these payments. And so they've always gone into here, but it's never been clear that, and luckily we've just been so far under budget in other things, it's made up for them. In looking, I have to go back through and look at, I've been focused on the CAFR. I have to go back through and look and see what happened and why they weren't budgeted this year. My intention was to budget for them. So I need to see where the translation error happened.
Okay, well, the focus right now needs to be on the CAFR, so we'll come back to this. But it would be good if we could understand that. Will we be able to crosswalk the budget to the CAFR? Will we be able to look at our budget categories and look at what is in the CAFR? Will that reflect the what goes into the budget for the preceding year's actual columns?
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
There are some groupings that the auditors make as part of the CAFR statement roll-up. They break things down, and I tried when I did the budget this year to lump everything that's in general government into what you'll be seeing as general government on the CAFR. But I don't know if they break out everything that we broke out for the budget, or if they include some of that in general government. And then in addition to that, there's some things that are capital assets that we've paid for in the budget, but they'll be lumping into an asset. So it's not one for one, but in theory, we should be able to explain it.
Great, thank you. Further questions? Councilmember Moss?
Yes, about the hotel tax.
Yep.
So there's 85 residents in Albany that you think we could be collecting some sort of hotel tax from.
Approximately.
I wasn't totally clear how we're defining those 85. Are these things that are advertised online as a rental that you can rent for short periods of time? Because you mentioned a legal case or a legal opinion that the city attorney has given us that says if you're an owner occupied and you're renting out rooms, that qualifies. But that's, that could be somebody who's renting out rooms to students, maybe not in this kind of larger sharing economy mode. So who are those 85 potential?
So we contracted with a company called Host Compliance to basically scour the internet to find people. And they have sent letters to everyone that they identified as, in theory, holding their home or a property out as a short-term rental. The definitions in the ordinance are what frame the tax. So basically, if you hold a room out as for rent for less than 30 days, it is a short-term rental. And taxes due, and the hotel tax.
So there's that time thing in it, which I wasn't seeing in the report, or maybe it was there, but I wasn't catching it. Have you made any guesses or speculated on how much revenue we're potentially?
We budgeted for $75,000 this year.
75,000?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, that's it for the moment.
Thank you. Councilmember Pilch, did you have questions?
Yeah, just also speaking of the hotel tasks, I know it's early days, but how's the compliance been so far?
We had a number of people come into our office today.
Okay, great. Just a note to my fellow council members, and I'll bring this up again, but other cities have done policy around short-term rentals, so we might want to consider that. I'll bring that up at the end again as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just have one question. On the page 11 of the actuals, I guess you could call it. I'm sorry, I'm not quite, under the police, it's current service charges.
Yep.
I guess I'm a little confused as to why 500 was budgeted and we've already taken in 98,000.
So that is the contract with the Kensington for dispatch services.
Right.
And we budgeted these revenues based off historical, and for some reason, the Kensington contract wasn't budgeted in that line last year. And I don't know where it was budgeted. I have to look into that. Or where it was actually like placed when we received it.
Would it make sense to change the budget number so that, and I don't know if you can do that, but
if we
just seems way out
budgeted
of
for
whack.
it somewhere else, then yes, I will do a budget transfer to move that money. I'm thinking that I don't see it being taken in last year. I have to figure out where we put it, and that's how we did our budgeting for revenues. So is we said, okay, what did we get last year? What should we budget for this year? And the only place it would have fit is fines and forfeitures, and I don't really think that contract is a fine or a forfeiture. So I have to go back through and figure out where it was, or maybe we didn't have the contract. So we didn't know it was coming in. If it was budgeted somewhere, I can do a budget transfer to move it to the correct line. If it wasn't, we're just going to increase the budget next year.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, and one is also on the hotel tax, and I agree. We have a number of policy issues. We mentioned this in the incident with the party house rental in Orinda. We want to probably want to review the hotel tax. We probably have other aspects of short-term rentals that we'll want to talk about. But I wanted to ask, when did the letter go out? Did it go out?
It just went out last week.
Last week, okay, but we're collecting retroactively to July 1st of 2019.
Yes.
And people have not necessarily charged their renters that amount.
No, and they can go back and charge them, but in theory, the tax was due. We're not charging interest or penalties. So if people reached out to us and asked, what am I supposed to do? We're saying, all right, you tried to do the right thing. But we are trying to, for this fiscal year, make it whole.
Okay, maybe when we talk about more things to talk about later on the agenda, we'll discuss that a little bit. I guess what concerns me is you're not our tax collection policy person, right? Right now that goes through the city. That is the city treasurer, part of her job description, and that's in transition because it will be different by the end of 2020. Please, it looks like.
Implementing this project was a shared work between multiple departments, actually, including community development, in terms of rentals and improvements.
But just the way hotels work, you look for a hotel online and it says you've got a $160 deal, and so you make a reservation, and then when you pay, you get a bill for $179, and that $19 is all a bunch of different taxes, and this is just kind of a standard thing, and you pay it. But if you go and you pay $160, and then a few months later the hotel contacts you and says, we want $19 more, you're not going to give it to them. And it seems unfair, really, to both parties to ask them to even consider doing that, really. So I think we may need to revisit how this is going to work. And that's, risk management category on page 6. It looks like perhaps we had some, do I understand this correctly, that this is some kind of insurance prepayment that we paid in the first quarter for the whole year? And do we expect to make budget in that category? Do we have, our anticipated insurance liabilities are within the remaining budgetary amount?
The bill came in a little bit higher than we had actually budgeted for that bill, but we historically underspend in what we budget for workers' comp and unemployment, so we should be okay.
Okay. All right, that's all I had. Any other questions from anyone? All right, then thank you very, very much.
Any public comment?
Yes, well, that is the next, thank you very much. I can use the help tonight, as you can tell. A little exhausted here. Do we have public comment on the budget, on the financial report? Thank you.
Can I owe you the speaker card? I'll bring it up.
No need.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about, and I'm glad that you asked the question, but about this hotel occupancy. And also about, the related topic is rentals in Albany, that there's this is taxable income. And so I just feel like that I don't think everyone's paying their fair share. And when we talk about fairness, if there's going to be a tax, everyone should have to pay it equally. So I'm glad that this is being addressed, but I'd be curious to find out more about how the city monitors this, and how we reach out and find people. But it's good that there's activity in this area. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add, I was waiting for a public comment to make my comment, which was that I'm very happy for, oh, sorry, is there more public comment or? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. One of the things I really like about the way that it's set up, when you're here and you're addressing, you can see all of the city council and you can see all of the audience. If you do this in Richmond or El Cerrito, the audience is behind you. And you've got to turn around. I don't want to turn my back on my people. So you guys got it set up correctly here. And then when I noticed the little flash of Albany Hill, eucalyptus? I mean, have you?
Okay, but right now we've got to focus on our budget. But thank you very much. Okay, Councilmember Pilch.
I just wanted to echo the sentiments of the member of the public who, and I want to thank staff for starting this effort and starting to make us whole. I don't have an issue with us starting to collect retroactively starting July 1st, especially since by code, people should have been remitting this tax already. And it's the first step towards establishing towards the discussion of other policies around short-term rentals, which I think is a bit overdue on our part. And so this is great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And let's discuss that when we talk about that a little bit more when we get to future agenda items, because that's, I think, where this really belongs. Okay, so we can move on to the public hearing. Ordinance number 2019-09, renaming the Traffic and Safety Commission to the Transportation Commission. First reading.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The current municipal code provisions related to the Traffic and Safety Commission were adopted in 1958 and frankly aren't terribly useful to us at this point. The council has discussed this on several occasions at your various strategic planning sessions and work plan review sessions and advisory body review sessions, and you've requested that we look at modernizing the Commission's municipal code provisions. We've reviewed this several occasions with the Traffic and Safety Commission, and at their meeting on July 25th, they moved to recommend that the City Council adopt this ordinance. The draft that's before you today incorporates the comments made by the Commission. The overall intent of the ordinance is to bring the municipal code into alignment with our current practices. We're not trying to make any dramatic changes in how the Commission operates. The proposed ordinance provides a summary statement of the Commission's purpose, duties, and structure, and again, that's trying to reflect our current practices. Changing the name is again, a step in modernization and is similar to what most other cities have. They have a transportation commission rather than kind of an older style name of traffic and safety. Specifically, the ordinance does call out the Commission's responsibility to serve as the city's active transportation advisory committee. This is something that the City Council approved in 2015 at the request of the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. And finally, the proposed ordinance establishes an appeal process for any decisions that might be made either by staff in the transportation realm that can get appealed to the Commission or by the Commission that can get appealed to the City Council. And this appeals process is patterned off what the planning and zoning chapter of the Municipal Code has for that Commission. And thus our recommendation this evening is the Council introduce for first reading Ordinance 2019-09 to adopt enabling ordinance for the Transportation Commission. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
There is a fee for P&Z to appeal a P&Z decision to the council. There is a fee, is there not? $150, something like that?
It's something around $600. I don't remember the exact amount.
Inflation. So that's going to be the same fee if someone, there's a decision about a crosswalk in a neighborhood and a neighbor wants to appeal that, it will be $600 to appeal that to the council.
It can be whatever fee the council wants to establish. If this is adopted and becomes effective, we can amend the master fee schedule, or we could simply have no fee initially, at least in the next time you look at the master fee schedule, which will be in probably May or June, we could incorporate it at that time.
Just based on my experience, divisive issues tend to come to the council anyway. I mean, traffic and safety makes a recommendation, or the new Transportation Commission will make a recommendation, but often they come to the council. And the ones that don't come to the council, I don't know much about. So what's like the breakdown in percentage? Are there controversial decisions, in your opinion, that are made at the Traffic and Safety Commission level and we never hear about?
No. You get all the substantive issues. There could be something, and I should provide some context in answering your question. This isn't the end of modernizing the municipal code in the transportation realm. There are a lot of different sections about parking and curb management and modifications to roadways that date back like this to the 50s. And so what we would like to do is create a role over the next few years, modernize those other sections of the code and give a role for the Transportation Commission to have a final decision-making authority. So as an example, you could delegate to the Transportation Commission responsibility for designating parking parameters, whether it's 90 minutes or a green zone or a red zone or something like that. And in that scenario, if the commission approves a red zone someplace and somebody wants to appeal that, then there's a formal way to do that. It hasn't come up in a formal way, although there have been a couple of decisions that the commission, where staff has, under the municipal code, strictly speaking, the authority to make a decision, but we go to the commission, the Traffic and Safety Commission, usually having to do with safety of red zones, just different kinds of red zones. And people say, well, what's the appeal? I don't like your decision, Commission. What's the appeal process? And we kind of shrug and, well, we don't really have one. So this is just putting the framework in for having a formal appeal process if we need to have one.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this item?
Sure, thank you. So how does this, is planning and zoning and parks and recreation and open space, are they established by resolution or ordinance?
Planning and zoning is by ordinance. I believe Parks, Rec, and Open Space is by ordinance. I'm less familiar with the details of it.
Okay. And you base this on planning and zoning. Do you think this similar changes would be necessary for Parks, Rec, and Open Space?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar enough with that commission's operations.
Okay.
They provide recommendations to the council except for on tree removals, and those are subject to appeal to the city council. So I think they're pretty well covered at this point in time.
So you're saying we have formal language for how an appeal is done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not explicit in the ordinance, but in the tree removal policy, yes.
Okay. I mean, it is a policy decision for us to have this appeal process, is it not? I mean, we are not required by law to introduce an appeal process for transportation commission decisions. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's a policy issue for the council, whether you want to have an appeal process. You could provide that their decisions are final, and the only avenue somebody would have at that point, if they disagreed with the decision, would be to go to court.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So I'll bring this back when we talk, when we have discussion, but what was your thinking in introducing the appeal process? Just that this was a modernization effort, or it would be correct to bring it in line with planning and zoning, or what were all the considerations you had in doing that?
Yes, it was a modernization effort that to have some structure to how to manage controversial issues that come before the commission, so that we're not treating different situations in different ways. And whether, you know, I felt like it was probably better to build that into the municipal code. We could adopt it as a, you could adopt it as a resolution, as some sort of policy, or excuse me, kind of some sort of standardized practice. The Planning and Zoning Commission appeal process, in my view, works pretty well. There's a structure to it, there's a time frame to it, and we haven't had issues with the way we process appeals under those parameters, so we thought it would be good to use that here, but we don't have to.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Other? Okay, sure.
Sorry, that raises another question, and maybe Craig can help out here. P&Z is a quasi-judicial commission, correct? Does that create legal requirements for appeal that do not exist for our other commissions?
The planning and zoning commissions are provided for in the state planning and zoning law, and I believe that there is a requirement for an appeal from certain types of decisions. Some of their decisions, such as recommending changes to zoning ordinances, they do not have authority to make a final decision. That is simply a recommendation to the council. But on the quasi-judicial decisions, like a use permit decision, those are appealable. I believe that's a requirement of state law as well as our ordinance.
Mm-hmm. So here's the next question, and that is, there is no real bright line in some cases between planning and zoning decisions and traffic and safety decisions. Some projects could involve both. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it just seems to me you would want, given there's this gray area between the two commissions, you'd want a consistent set of procedures between the two. So it would make sense you would want, appeal procedures that are similar. Just saying. Is that a reasonable thing to state?
Yeah, and roughly the bright line between the two commissions is the Planning and Zoning Commission is reviewing and taking action on development projects on private property usually. And there may be some projects that have no impact on the public right-of-way at all, most projects, in fact, but there occasionally will be a project that comes along that does affect the public right-of-way. There are new driveways, or if it's a big enough project, maybe there's a new intersection or a big modification to the intersection. And then the city, your subject matter experts on the Transportation Commission should be the ones that weigh in and give you a recommendation on that element of the project. They're not approving the private application, but they might have wanted to, you might want them to make a recommendation on a modification to an intersection as a hypothetical example. Or you might delegate to them a decision about it. In that case, if somebody doesn't like that decision, they can appeal it.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Do we have any public comment? Do we have any comment cards, please?
Thank you. On this topic of appeals process, I'm not familiar with all the details, but to me as a citizen, I would expect something like that to have some sort of appeal. And in terms of the numbers, how many times I wouldn't want to waste a lot of the city council's time. So something where someone had to come here to the council meeting and do it, maybe. But have an appeals process makes it feel like a more democratic. And I can just see how there might be an occasion when someone would be upset with an advisory body's decision. Advisory members aren't elected, they're appointed. So I think it would be good to have some kind of appeals process and have it, the fee be according to what it costs the city. But thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, then I'll bring it back to council. Any final comments?
Yeah, I'd make one comment. When I read through this and seen this appeal process, that was exactly my reaction. This does seem to make it more democratic. I hope it doesn't make it more complicated or convoluted in some way, that as we go for changing our streets around, adding perhaps paid parking or other safety improvements, because our transportation systems are getting more complicated, this doesn't become a way for people who don't want to see any kind of change to kind of stop it. And we're sort of doing this to side with our democratic values, but it may slow up some things too. So it's a comment. I'm prepared to agree with this tonight, but it is a little bit of fear, so doing so.
I would just point to this council's record on overturning planning and zoning decisions as a benchmark for how much of a problem this might become.
I'm sorry, could you speak up a little? I can't hear you.
I said, if you look at our record on overturning planning and zoning commissions, in other words, it's very rare that we ever really overturn a planning and zoning commission. I suspect it would be equally as rare that we're going to overturn traffic and safety, but who knows? But I think we have a strong track record of respecting the decisions of our commissions.
Well, I'm certainly all for the democratic process, and I think that in the we already have multiple levels here by having advisory bodies that have public meetings where people can comment, and then the traffic and safety recommendations are brought to the council. I'm very concerned about this along the lines of Councilmember Moss, that someone could, the Traffic and Safety Commission could decide that a red curb should be painted somewhere and for safety reasons, and that be held up in some sort of appeal process, 8 foot of red paint. I'm concerned that this is a bit too much red tape, if you'll pardon the pun, that we're introducing into the process of something that's a lot simpler usually than Planning and Zoning Commission decision, which is based on reams of documents from an applicant of major substantial changes to a property. So I'm actually not in favor of this. I'm going to vote no, and if the council does pass this, I will be in favor of very high fees for appeals to these things, because I just see this as a way for people to gum up the works, and I want to put more trust in my Traffic and Safety Commission.
Vice Mayor McQuaid, do you have any comments?
Not right now.
Okay. Well, I will make a comment here. It seems to me that delegating decision-making to another body is helpful when, I think the perfect example is the tree situation. We don't want to hold hearings at the city council spending hours discussing whether a particular tree should be taken down or not. But given the level of passion about trees, we feel that we do need to have a forum for people to do that and have it decided. In the area of transportation, I think it's actually, we really want to try to ratchet down the level of emotion and concern about things like a parking space being eliminated because we decided to put in a red curb for safety purposes. So it does, creating a forum to have a greater level of debate about things worries me a little bit. I also have a little procedural concern about this item tonight as a first reading item. It is headed renaming the Traffic and Safety Commission to the Transportation Commission. It's not about, it's not described in its heading, and let me pull up the agenda for a moment. I think it would be pretty natural for someone looking at this agenda to think that this is something that is just about changing the name of the Traffic and Safety Commission, and I think that maybe this needs to be given a little more consideration and perhaps brought back with a more explicit agenda item that we are adopting a new set of procedures with regard to transportation. So I'm leaning to not to approve this as a first reading, but to look at reworking it.
Can I ask, did the transportation, or whatever we're calling it, traffic and safety, weigh in on this, the whole appeal process?
Yes, they reviewed this draft. They didn't have a lot of discussion about the appeal process.
Well, just to clarify, I'll ask our city attorney if you see any Brown Act violations or potential Brown Act violations because this item was agendized in an inarticulate way.
Well, I would say the description is a bit skimpy. I mean, when I read it, I thought that the only change was to change the name of the commission, but actually, if you read the staff report, it indicates there's some procedural changes too. So I think it might not be a bad idea to bring it back with a more complete wording on the agenda.
What about, can we do that at second reading? It's better to do a first reading and a second reading again?
Let's, well, does anyone want to make a motion here?
Well, let me just,
Yeah, go
can I
ahead.
just make a comment first, because I didn't. You know, I'm fine with that. I think that you do have a good point that it's probably, I liked your term, a little skimpy. Good legal term. You know, I don't have any problem with the appeal. It matches planning and zoning. I think it's fine. But having said that, well, if we're not going to introduce it, do we need a motion? Can we just not do it? Or is it better to have a motion?
You don't want to have to go through I'm not sure what noticing was done, but if you don't want to have to renotice it, a motion to continue the first reading would be appropriate.
Okay, I'll move we continue first reading of ordinance 2019-09 to a date uncertain.
I'll second that.
Is there discussion?
So we're going to.
We're going to continue it and well, I think with essentially continuing it with the staff to consider this discussion and re-agendize it with this. And I would like to make one comment. I think, and again, I apologize if my exhaustion is making me inarticulate, but there are certain kinds of decisions, like painting if someone requests the city paint a blue curb in front of their house, and a city official says no, that seems like the kind of action that I'd like people to be able to appeal. On the other hand, if a traffic engineer says, you know, this corner is really unsafe and we really need to paint it red so that we have greater safety, I'm not so sure I want to see that action be an appealable action. And so the breadth of this, a decision to grant or deny a permit or action taken by a city official, I think it might make more sense to make it somewhat narrower to the class of the kind of decisions that we want people to be able to appeal.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. In fact, I had that thought earlier on, that let's have a list of the appealable items, and so that we know exactly what we're talking about. You know, certainly we're not asking for appeals of resolutions or recommendations to the council, but let's make it absolutely clear exactly what is appealable.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comment?
I think the city manager has a comment.
I mean, just
Yes.
to add to
Thank
that, I think what we'll do to enable some additional flexibility in terms of the list of appealable items is we'll return with an ordinance with the renaming, and then by resolution grant the council the authority to identify that list of appealable items, so it's easier to change over time, because I think it'll be fluid.
Yeah, a flexible, yeah, that seems like a great way to go. So are we ready to vote on the motion? May we have a roll call, please?
Do you have the motion?
You could read it.
Councilmember
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McQuay?
Yes.
Mayor Nason?
Yes.
The ordinance is continued for first reading.
Thank you. We go to, we have no unfinished business. We have no new business. So we're up to discussion of future agenda items. And I think, Councilmember Pilch, did you want to restate your point from earlier tonight regarding accessory dwelling units?
Short-term rentals, rather.
I'm sorry, short-term rentals.
Yeah, I think I'd love to agendize a discussion of a potential policy around short-term rentals, whether we want to limit them at all, or any other policy we might want to apply onto them as other neighboring cities have done.
Any other future agenda items that people would like to mention or suggest? Okay, then I think that we are, and with regard to the short-term rentals, my comment regarding the taxation is just a general comment about a concern about the procedure, and I do think it is really within the responsibility and authority of the city treasurer until 2020 to make that call. But I just want it to be understood that concerns me. I'm imagining getting a letter from a city saying that I owe them $19, a few months after I've checked out. It would certainly dampen people's interest in returning to that rental, and they may not have any interest in paying the tax, and it just seems a little potentially problematical.
Yeah, but
but I don't want to get into discussion of it because it really isn't agendized.
Just to correct the facts, though, I believe the finance director was saying that the owner could send that letter, not the city. I think that was her suggestion.
Maybe I didn't understand what is happening. I thought that the city sent a letter to the proprietors saying that they needed to pay this tax. But the letter went to them after the tax, the time when they would have started collecting the tax on the 1st of July. And we're asking them retroactively to either pay the tax or attempt to collect it from their checked out people. Is that right?
I think we were asking them to pay the tax, but possibly leaving them the option of trying to recover it from the tenants, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that would be up to the owner to decide to do that or not.
Right, but in the ordinary course of taxation of short-term rentals, that would be put on the hotel bill and paid by the person. So it just strikes me as contrary to the normal practice of the hospitality industry. But it's truly not really, there's no noticing of this issue. I just wanted to make that comment. And we will adjourn tonight in honor of young people, people in their 20s, one only in her teens, who lost their lives in this dreadful incident in Orinda. So let's take a moment of silence. And with that, we are adjourned.